Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you guys are having an amazing day. Today, we are going to talk about our Black women 50 and over sacrificing their health and well being. But before we get started, let me introduce myself. Hi, my name is Angela. Welcome to Unapologetically 50 Plus, where we delve into the real, the raw, and the rewarding experiences of Black women 50 and beyond. I also have a huge favor to ask. If you find any value or enjoy our content, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification. And let YouTube know you want more of this kind of content. It's free and you are helping us build this community. So thank you, and we truly appreciate your support. So, as we know, life has a way of overwhelming us. And especially for Black women and in our 50s and beyond, that can come with a host of issues like persistent fatigue, emotional burnout, and even behavioral changes. And these are red flags that we shouldn't ignore. When physical and mental exhaustion overshadows our joy and self worth, it's time for us to reassess our priorities. We need to embrace self care, set some boundaries, and create space for reflection and connection. And we also need to learn to protect our energy and reclaim our well being. And with that said, I want to introduce my guest, Nakia Hamilton, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this. Okay. Forgive me, I'm just getting over well, I'm not completely over it. I was out for the count yesterday.
Oh,
I might sound a little congested, and hopefully I'm not going to be coughing too much. So,
going around. It's
yeah,
going
my
around.
husband had it, and I'm like, you know, I said, I'll go sleep in the other bedroom.
Yeah.
No, don't do that.
So
And
cute.
this is what happens.
Yeah.
I'm like, look. So I told him yesterday when I was out, I said, from now on, when either one of us gets sick, you go sleep either on the couch or in the
Yeah.
spare bedroom.
Not gonna let that
He's not.
happen.
I'm like, and as we get older, it's harder to fight these colds.
It
So
is.
thank you so much for coming on and having this discussion with me because you have a very interesting story
Yeah.
that, I'm sure a lot of women are going to want to hear. Like I said, this topic came about because I remember we had our conversation and I said, what do you feel comfortable talking about? And
Mhm.
you said health and wellness. How we sacrifice as women of color, Black women, especially as we get older in our 50s, we're taking care of our parents most likely. We might have grown children still in the home, and we are trying to balance that at the sacrifice of our own health.
Mhm.
So, can you tell me why this story resonated with you and why you wanted to actually have this discussion?
This first of all, it's a pleasure being here and being able to talk to you today.
Yes.
But this resonated with me because when I was 49, so last year I'm 50 now, I turned 50 in August. I was diagnosed with breast cancer, DCIS, breast cancer. Now, because my mother passed from it um, when she was in her 40s,
Mm-hmm.
I've been getting checked every year from the time I was 30.
Mm-hmm.
So I was used to that. And then in April of last year, went to a check um, to get a checkup on something they had found previously. It was like, okay, that was good. There's no problem there, but we see something else. And then that test came back saying, oh, I'm so sorry you have breast cancer. I remember, you always remember where you were when you heard the news. I was driving. She's like, are you alone? I'm like, yes, I'm in my car. But I was driving. Um, and she told me the news, and we both just kind of sat there because I have faith. Um, I heard her, but in that moment, I was like, okay, whose report am I gonna believe? So
And what you said it's DC,
it's called DCIS,
what
and
is that?
I'm not. From what I understand, it's when you have a tumor, but it's contained. It hasn't spread yet.
Okay.
So it's considered stage zero. So that's why I'm still a little confused
Mm-hmm.
on my treatment, and I'm talking to a lot of. This should just open the door for me to talk to a lot of other women who have gone through this and try to get some assistance because the doctors are just the news just, I mean, the information just changed from day to day when I'm talking
Day.
to a doctor. So stage 0, so it's supposed to be preventable, but we have to do a lumpectomy so it doesn't spread. So going in, doing the surgery, making sure they take out that tumor. Now for me, because I wanted to do things naturally, I waited 3 months before I did the surgery. I was taking drinking soursop tea and
Mhm.
taking different herbs. You
Okay.
know, trying to change my eating habits just to see if that would help. So I went back and also building up my faith. I just wanted to be grounded before I went through this process because
Yeah.
I do have children and just I have faith, but I was still kind of shook.
Right.
That's a big thing, especially with my mom passing of that.
Right.
So yeah.
And so how, speaking on as Black women in our a certain age range are sacrificing our health and wellness, um, do you think any of that played into what's going on with you now, or
Most definitely, in my opinion, and because I have like like my doctor told me, the kind of breast cancer I had, it wasn't caused by hormones. So they say it's the worst kind because they
okay,
can't use a pill to treat it for the next 5 years because they don't know what caused it. We know like stress can cause things. I about maybe 10 years ago was in a horrible abusive marriage, still recovering, emotionally still recovering from that and
okay,
taking care of my children and grandchild, working, just trying to get back up on my feet. I feel like just holding all those things because we got to be strong. I
right,
was raised by a grandmother and great grandmother, and so I was brought up under a different kind of work ethics. You just had to keep going, and that's what I
right,
did. And so I really do feel like that played a part. It could have played a part in that, and
yeah,
and me sacrificing eating correctly, gaining weight. So when I got out my divorce, just went through this depression, put on a lot of weight,
yeah, yeah.
um, struggling with that. Yeah.
So, and that kind of leads into what do you see as some of the challenges for Black women, especially over 50, when it comes to recognizing and addressing these toxic influences that are in our lives?
That's that's a tough one. I feel like that's something we have to consciously unlearn.
Yeah,
'Cause like I said, I was raised by my grandmother and great grandmother. So I was taught, of course, have your own, do your own, get your own, no matter
right.
what. You hustle for that, you work hard for that. Um, but it's almost at the expense of your health
Yeah,
as well. You know,
right.
I used to think it was a flex, like the young people say. I thought it was a flex that I had close to 400 hours of sick time because I'm always at work. That's not a flex.
That's not a
I,
flex.
I
Or
remember,
all the vacation. I got
yeah,
5 weeks of vacation, but
exactly.
I'm, sick every other month,
Coming to
or
work,
whatever. Yeah,
coming
yeah.
to work. There's no badge of honor in that.
No,
You
no. And
so
and unfortunately, a lot of the companies, they kind of, they say, well, no, stay at home, take your sick time. But then when you do,
you're punished for it.
yeah, they might not say it out loud, but you can
Mhm.
see that there's a little bit of, okay, well, you were absent for 2 days, so we
Mhm.
had to give that special project to so and so, you
Absolutely.
know. And I've, personally, when I was in the pharmaceutical industry and I felt that kind of pressure,
Mhm.
I had to learn how to say, you know what? It's, I guess that project or that position or that promotion wasn't for me because you're right. You're at your own expense, your own health and well-being and mental health.
That's it.
You making somebody else a whole lot of money, not you.
Exactly.
And it's not always about the money, of course, but you also feel, well, I have to be dedicated to this job, or I
Right.
have to be dedicated to making sure that my kids have every single thing they need and they
Yep.
want.
Yeah.
And then what happens? We end up
Yeah.
we end up, hurting ourselves
Mhm.
physically and mentally.
Absolutely.
So, and we also face a lot of cultural expectations,
We
you
do.
know, to put others first, to make it difficult to identify when relationships or work or, environments are negatively impacting us and
Right.
our well-being. So we really have to, get past that struggle and the feeling of guilt or judgment,
I
fear,
agree.
and get past that and say, you know what, I'm going to put myself first. And I
That's
think
tough
for
sometimes.
yeah, it is tough. It is tough. And that's why, I hope with, these conversations
Yeah.
with ladies like yourself that we can put that behind us and learn to say no, especially as we get in our 50s. This is supposed to be
Yeah.
our years of like, you know what? I'm gonna do me and I love you guys, but I gotta put me first.
And I felt that. I did. I used to hear that when I was younger, like, oh, when you turn 50, it's going to be a change. And when I turned 50, I did feel the change. I'm starting to say no a lot more. I
That
remember,
light switches, huh?
yes, I said no. And someone said, oh, you're mean. It's not that I'm mean. It's just now I'm putting myself first and not at
Yeah.
the expense of myself. Like, yeah, I'm take care of me. What
Take
does
care
that
of
look
you.
like? That's
Right.
different.
Yeah, that's true. What does that look like? Because taking care of you could be different. Every woman has their own way of taking care of themselves. Sometimes just taking care of yourself means I'm going to say no. I love
Yes,
you, but I'm going to say no. I'm
that's
going to stay
right.
in tonight because I don't feel like going over there to help so and so. I'm going to say
Right.
no. And that's what people have to, especially our family who has been used to us saying yes and okay and
Yeah.
sacrificing and pulling ourselves out of the bed even when we're sick. We're saying
Mhm.
no. And they have to get used to that.
Yes.
They have to get used to that.
Only a change.
Right, right. And it's gonna take some time because they're, like I said, they're used to mama or
Yeah.
wifey or whatever saying yes. And they're like, oh my mom told me no. Yes, get used to it.
Right. Right. Here I am now.
Yeah. So the cultural expectations, you said this, being that strong Black woman,
Mhm.
do you think that makes it harder for us to prioritize our health and our
It really
peace?
does. It does. It does. Because if we don't let that go, I noticed for those of us that grew up under that, oh, you got to be a strong Black woman, we're the last to get help. I remember helping one of my strong friends and her saying, I've always been on top. I've always been able to help my family. And now that I need it, they're telling me you're gonna make it. She's like, but I don't know if I'm gonna make it.
Right,
So the strong person is the last to get help because we're
right.
seen as they always figure it out.
They
They
always figure.
always land on their feet. And
Right.
that may have been true, but you get to a point where listen, I may not land on my feet this time and I need help.
Yeah.
So
Do you find it hard to ask for help, you
I
personally?
do.
Yeah. And
I
I've heard
do.
that from so many women, and even my co-host who comes on sometimes, she struggles to ask for help. And one of the examples is she had to move, and she actually used to live in Rockland, and she had to move, and it was hard for her to ask her children, who are grown, adult children, to help her move. So I would drive down there and help her and stuff like that. But it was hard, and she said it is hard, and she, she sacrificed her health and well-being because
Yes.
she didn't reach out and ask for help. And I understand it is hard, especially if you've asked for help and people are like, well, do you really? No, I mean, they might not physically say it, but their actions say, well, do you really need it?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
so yeah, I can understand that that part of us saying, I can do it, I can do it. I do it with my
Yeah.
husband. I do my husband, I got it, and he knows by now, because we've been married 29 years, he knows that, hey, stop, you don't got it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
That helps too sometimes for me to step back and say, you know what, I don't have to do this by myself. It's okay
So,
to ask him for help or ask my kids for help. So, and
so,
sometimes you'll get a no and you have to just go, okay, well, note taken. Next time when you ask, I mean, and you hate to go tit for tat, but you're like,
yeah,
okay, so the next time you ask for help, remember this,
right,
you
right,
know? But
right.
yeah.
I think that's what makes it hard to ask for help, because you don't want to be disappointed. So it's
Yeah,
like I'd rather not even ask you. I'll figure it out. And I think that hurts us in the end. It really does.
yeah.
Really
And
does.
and also I think the more if we get to a point where we say, you know what, I'm going to keep asking, at some point they will say, oh, maybe she really does need help.
Yes.
I would hope,
Yeah.
that would somewhere click in their mind and they go, okay,
Mhm.
mom really needs help.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, what advice would you give to Black women who feel obligated to remain in unhealthy situations out of guilt or cultural norms?
I would say, and I'm still learning to deal with this myself, just putting yourself first.
Mhm.
And one day at a time, start with small steps, with
Yeah,
saying no. And
yeah.
no is a complete sentence.
I always
Uh,
like that. No is a
Yes,
complete sentence. Yeah,
yes, that was a hard one for me. When I did say no, it was because no, you don't have to offer a reason. It's just no.
just no.
And
Right,
taking care of you and knowing that if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to do anything for anyone else anyway.
right,
Change
right.
perspective.
And we have to recognize that our s- our s- our health and well-being is not selfish. And that's we
Ooh,
look at that. It's not selfish.
yeah, that's a tough one.
That is.
We
That
feel like it, like, oh, I'm
we
being selfish.
Right. And but I think we were taught that. I
We were
think we were taught that. And I don't think it was, out of,
intentional.
m- I don't think it was intentional. I don't think it was out of, any bad will. I think that we were just taught that, especially when you start having children and if, oh, bug in my face, or, you have a family you have to take care of, a husband you have to take care of, that you have to put yourself last on that totem pole.
Right,
You are the foundation, so you got to remain strong and and be there for everybody else. But it comes to, well, when am I going to be there for me?
right.
So we have to realize that it's not being selfish
Yeah.
to put yourself first. And everybody else needs to also recognize that because they've been putting themselves first,
Right.
all this time. So, you have to honor that. You have to honor your values and your commitments without sacrificing, your well-being and set some boundaries. You have
Right.
to set those boundaries, and that's what we haven't learned how to do. And when we finally get that, like you said, that light that switches off at 50, we're like, we're done. We haven't learned how to set those boundaries. So that might take another couple years for us to say, okay, yes, these are the boundaries. I will be here for you, but these are the boundaries that I have set, and you will have to learn to respect those boundaries.
It,
So yeah, that's a tough one. That is a challenging one for especially for Black women. Um, your physical health.
mhm,
So how does physical health, especially in Black women, like we said, over 50,
mhm.
be directly impacted by long exposures to stress, toxic environments, toxic relationships? I mean, we know how it's impacted you. Other than that, which is to me, cancer is the ultimate impact. What other things have you seen within yourself that it impacted you? Because I heard you say you went through a toxic relationship, you got a divorce.
Yeah.
Um, how did that impact you, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally?
Oh, mentally, I was a wreck.
How
If
long were you married, if you don't
I
mind me
was
asking?
married 7 years,
Okay.
and it took another year just to get the divorce. It was just horrible just to get the divorce.
Yeah.
And I was raised in that, oh, you got to stay married. So I was putting up with a lot, but at the expense of losing myself. I
Yeah.
looked older. I mean, I looked older. I remember standing next to one of my best friends, and we took a picture, and someone said, "Oh, is that your mom?" I'm her mom. Like we're the same age. But after, I got the divorce, it was like a weight lifted off of me. And even though I was still going through a kind of depression, so
Mm-hmm.
mental part, feeling like a failure, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I could have done more, or should I've, stayed, and all that comes to play, but it was wearing on me,
Right.
and I have these babies to raise that were left behind.
Mm-hmm.
So the mental aspect of it, depression, and then later, just because I didn't have time to grieve that divorce. Grief is
Okay.
not just for death, but it's anything that ends,
Yeah.
if it's a relationship, or a job, we grieve that. And so
Yeah.
holding that in causes, I was having heart problems. And I would go to the doctor and they was like, we can't find anything. We can't find anything. And I remember, it just triggered my mind, going into the doctor and the nurse saying, like, do you know what's causing this? And
Mm-hmm.
I said, I think so. She said, let me ask you, do you know who's causing this?
Wow.
I said,
Wow. Okay.
I looked at her. I said, I do. She
Mm-hmm.
said, how long are you going to stay there?
Mm.
Nurse, black nurse.
Mm.
I said, say less. I'm working on it.
Mm. Okay. So I had a question right on the tip of my tongue and I lost it. So, and how old are your children? How old are your
My,
babies?
my oldest is 30, who's
Oh, they're
pregnant.
not babies then. Sorry, they're not babies.
And then my son is 19 and my
Okay.
baby girl just turned 18. So
Oh,
I'm almost
wow.
an empty
Okay.
nester. I
Yes,
have one
congratulations.
grandson. Thank you.
It's a
Thank you.
beautiful thing.
Yes, I can't wait. And that's another part. Like, what does my life look like? I was talking to my oldest daughter, and we were planning this trip in October because my youngest daughter plays basketball all
Uh-huh.
over the state.
Uh,
And I said, oh, and she graduates in May. But when my daughter was asking about a trip in October, I was like, well, I have to see if Riss has a game. And she was like, Mom, she's graduating in May. I was like, yeah, I have to
oh,
see. It did not
it
click.
didn't
I
occur.
won't have
Yeah.
to worry about that anymore.
Yeah.
Riding her around, being her private taxi. So
Right. That was the question I was going to ask. So you made mention of, staying with your ex because I think I heard you say, because that's what the church
yeah, the
said
church,
you.
my great grandmother,
Hmm.
till death, even if it's killing you.
And how do you think that impacts women in general when, if you truly believe in, your church and this is what you're going to, you go every Sunday or whatever, and this is what you were raised to believe.
That's right.
How is that impacting us as women to remain in unhealthy relationships because the church says so? I know quite a few women who are doing that. They're remaining because the church says so. How uh, how can we help women to understand that yes, that might be what the church is telling you, but not at the expense of your own health and well-being?
Mm-hmm. So I've learned, about emotional intelligence. So now that I teach it,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things, in that concept is looking at the values you were taught and
Mm-hmm.
seeing what no longer serves you. That was big. I think I had to go through that course and teach others for me to reflect to myself, like, okay, wait a minute, what is no longer serving me?
Mm-hmm.
And that particular value of staying in a toxic relationship, regardless of whose rules that was, at the expense of myself and
Mm-hmm.
my children, because my children went through abuse too.
Okay.
It just was not worth it. And of course there were, people in the church, that I confided in, was like, okay, there's a way to safely get out of this. So I did have that support. It wasn't just so like,
Good.
oh, you can't leave, but just
Okay.
hearing that the values that I grew up with from my great grandmother, you stay till death, yeah, it's gonna be my death if
Right.
I
Right.
if I stay. So I
Right.
had to realize that doesn't serve me, and I have a personal relationship with God. I think that was the most important, regardless of what someone else is saying.
Mm-hmm.
I just like me and you talking. I used to get in my car and talk to God like, God, you see this now.
Right. Right.
That's how I was. You see this.
Right.
This is how I'm feeling. This is what I want to do, and I need you to move on my behalf. And when I tell you he moved on my behalf, he did.
Okay, okay. And that I think that's good for women to hear that. Yeah, yeah, the church might be a big part of your life, but don't let it be the thing that I'm trying to be careful of saying it ends your life.
Yes,
No. You do have to sometimes decide, look, am I going to do what's best for me or am I going to stay in something because this is what I've been told I had to do?
right, right.
So we
That's
really
it.
have to really look at that. No, no matter what it is, it doesn't have to be necessarily just a religion. It can be, like you said, elders or someone you really highly respect. If this problem or this issue, this toxic environment is slowly killing you, then you got to get out. You
You
got to
gotta
get
get
out.
out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, what steps do you think Black women can take to redefine what peace and wellness mean for themselves? Especially in this
Um,
season in our lives,
right.
especially now.
I'm on that journey now, especially getting ready to be an empty nester. What does that look like with just me finding my peace?
Yeah.
And that's almost being a kid again for me, dreaming again. Like what?
Yes.
Yeah, like what brought me
Dream.
joy? Yes,
Yes.
that's what it's. Getting out by myself, seeing what do I like? Because I'm single, so
Yeah.
what do I like? And what does that look like?
What does that look like?
What brings me joy
Hmm.
first before having to consider someone else, even with my kids? Like, no, for me, for Nikki, what does that look like? And so just taking those little steps, even if it's just going to dinner by myself, that was big. I know ladies is doing that, now, but that was even big. Like, oh, I'm a whole vibe by myself.
You go, girl. That's the one thing my co-host would say when she was on her self journey. She said sometimes I would just take myself out on a date. I would get dressed up. She said I would take a good book, I get dressed up, go have dinner and some wine or whatever, and just sit there and people watch and read. And she said, like you said, I'm a whole vibe by myself. I'm good.
That's it. That's where I
I
am.
haven't gotten to that point yet where I can go. I mean, I can go like for a hike or something by
Yeah.
myself, but to go sit like in a movie or to dinner, I haven't gotten to that point yet. So I have to learn how to do that, even with my husband, and that's what I always tell women as well. Because they say, well, you have a husband, you guys have a great marriage, blah, blah, blah. I said, but I'm still an individual.
Exactly.
Yes, he's my other half, but he's an individual and I'm an individual, and sometimes we just need time apart. I love him dearly, but sometimes we need time apart. So I need to learn how to do that. So you're gonna have to guide me on that. Encourage me. Angela, go to dinner.
It's so fun. Movies too. That was the second one I did. Like, yeah, this is nice.
And go to any movie I want without all that. Why are we seeing that movie? So, well, that's great. So. Um, Now, you talked about your grandparents or your grandmother. So, how can generational trauma or cultural expectations affect us and affect us in setting boundaries or letting go of toxic situations?
Yeah. So again, that value system, it's almost like a standard.
Hmm.
You know, I saw my grandmother because she raised me, and then my great grandmother was next door. So between to my great grandmother,
Hmm.
I was drugged to church all the time. My grandmother, I was drugged to the casino, right? So I just remember like being in between these two worlds,
Right.
trying to find my way.
Uh-huh.
But they're even now that they're both passed, I still hear their voice in some things. But again, I always have to keep in the forefront, does that serve me? And I just like looking over my life, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm repeating what my grandmother did.
Okay.
Her being divorced, going through an abusive relationship. And sometimes she was the abuser. Uh,
Mm.
those old school Southern women,
Oh,
you know,
okay. Okay.
um, and just seeing how strong she was, but to her health, like she ended up with lung cancer.
Mm.
Remember when she would get nervous, she would smoke. I was like, Grandma, didn't you just quit smoking? She was like, y'all got on my nerves so bad, you got me smoking again. So,
Okay.
that whole cycle.
That whole side, yeah.
Yes, and that's trauma.
Yeah.
That's trauma. So my trauma isn't cigarettes, it's eating,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
It's food. That's how I comfort, if I'm stressed.
Yeah.
So my kids now, oh, you guys got on my nerves so bad, I had to go get In-N-Out burger, cheesecake,
Right, right.
I see it repeating, and I'm having to stop that thought in its track. And
Yeah.
that's a new for me.
Yeah. 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 I also think that generational trauma often teaches us resilience at
Yes.
the expense of our own health.
Yeah.
But then, you try and then it makes it hard for us to set those boundaries.
Yes.
And, or prioritize our self-care without feeling guilty
Yes.
or feeling like we failed. That's another thing.
That was a big one.
Oh, I mean, we used to do that, have that feeling with our kids when they weren't acting a certain way. It's that guilt that I didn't do something. I didn't do something that was enough. I
Right.
didn't do enough of this, or I should have done it this way as the mother. I didn't teach them this. So that was that
Yeah.
trauma or that guilt. I won't even say trauma. It was that guilt that I was feeling. Um, but as I've gotten older, I've had to tell myself, look, I did the best I could with what I knew at the time. Would I do it again? Some of it, yes. Some of it, no. But they're okay. And
Right.
they're out there being productive citizens. So I must, well, shouldn't say just me, my husband as well, but as the mother, I did something right.
Yes.
And I think we think that we have to raise our children just the way our parents raised us. And in some aspects, we've learned or we in some aspects how we were raised were good and some had some difficulties and those needed to be changed, but it's still we need to let go of that guilt. We need to
Yeah.
let go of that guilt.
I was raised in a strict household, so I did the opposite with my kids. And sometimes I
Hmm.
had guilt of like, oh my gosh, did I not teach them or get them ready for this world because I allowed them to be kids? When you grow up with grandparents and great grandparents while everybody else was spending their Saturdays watching cartoons, I had to get up early in the morning, get out in the garden,
Oh,
pick
okay.
greens and cook dinner. Like I was
Oh,
9, 10, and that was pressure. And so the opposite, what I've done is I don't ask my kids to do any of that, to the point where I'm like, do you guys know how to do anything? I think they're kind of spoiled, but
yeah.
um I feel like, okay, I allowed you guys to be kids and I didn't have that. And sometimes we can go to the extreme,
Right.
I don't want them to grow up like that. So it's a little too loose, but they're
Right.
okay so far.
Hey, when you said one is 30, one is in college.
Yes, my son is in college playing football. He'll be graduating junior college this year and
Okay.
looking to go to a university after that. And then my high schooler is getting offers as well for college. So
So right there, you've done something right.
thank you.
Right there, you've done, like I said, as long as they're productive, whether they go to college or not, as long as they're productive citizens and, not saying, Mama, can't get, I need a little,
Right. Right.
You've done something okay. So kudos,
Thank
especially
you.
everything that you have gone through. I want to backtrack on something. You said you teach emotional intelligence, or you took a course, so you.
Yes. DB Bedford out of Oakland, California,
Uh-huh.
during COVID,
Uh-huh.
um, is when I found him. So actually,
Okay.
me working where I work, we taught a little piece of emotional intelligence, and I love public speaking, first of all. I mean, like I
Oh.
sing every Sunday, so I love, you know, getting out there. And we taught this little piece of emotional intelligence. So it made me dig into it more. And that's how I found DB Bedford out of Oakland, California. And
Oh,
so
okay.
his course, and it's basically teaching you how not to get your emotions all riled up when making decisions. He always says, when
Mm,
emotions are high, logic is low. And I
true. Yeah.
remember after going through his course, this was around the time when George Floyd was killed. So
Okay.
we also had the city being shut down at a certain time, and my church had an event where, because of COVID, we couldn't be in close quarters. So we went to
Right.
the movies. We took the kids, the youth, to the movie theaters outside, but you were in your car, right? So it was just
Right.
me and my two youngest kids. I stopped at In-N-Out Burger, got them some food. I'm on this dark road. Cop comes, flips a U-turn.
In Sacramento?
It's Sacramento. Follow
Okay.
me. So nobody's on the street but me and him. And
Hmm.
mind you, there's a lot of protests going on. So I'm like, oh my gosh. He follows me a mile and a half, stop at the stop sign. When I turn, he turns on his lights. Now I know I didn't do anything because he was going the opposite way of me and he flipped that turn and followed me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So because I had DB Bedford's class and had learned those concepts about having a purposeful pause, not being emotional, taking emotions out of it so we can live to see another day, I took all that into consideration because prior to that, I would have popped off. I know me. I was
Yeah.
like, I already know. I would have said, why? I would have went through the whole spill.
Right.
Like, why did you follow me? You didn't have no reason. So he pulls up. I give him my license. Roll down the window, give him my license. And unfortunately, we as Black people got to take the emotions out of everything.
Right. Right.
That's that's crazy.
Because we're too emotional.
Exactly. So I'm considering my tone, the way my face looks, and my screen, all that. We have to
All that. All
help
then that
people understand that.
stress that adds to
Yes.
the stress.
Remember to turn on the light so you can see the inside. All this to make him feel safe.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And my son, I'm telling my son, who's, I think he was 12 at the time, don't make any sudden movements. He's a kid.
Mm-hmm.
To him, he's looking like a grown man,
Right.
And so officers like, do you know why I stopped you? No, I don't. No, I'm watching how I say that. It's like, no. And he said that the tip of your tire, I have a SUV, he's in a patrol car, he's behind me. He said that the tip of your tire didn't touch the top of the stop sign line.
What? I've never heard that.
Exactly. And he paused as if I was going to
Excuse me.
argue with
Uh-huh.
him. He
Hmm.
paused because normally I would have. And when I sat there and looked at him, he started stuttering. I said, oh, this is powerful. He
Hmm.
started stuttering and he said, you know what? I'm going to go take your license and run it. I was like, okay. He came back. Of course, he didn't find anything. He says, you know what? I'm just out here educating people. You're free to go. My son is like, Mom, why you didn't say this and that? I said, because sometimes we have to use our logic. I said, if he was to give me a ticket, I want to live to go fight it in court, not on this dark street.
Mhm.
That's the things we have to, that's stressful.
Yes. Yeah.
Stuff like that is stressful. And that's what we have to live with every day.
Yeah.
Just
Well, offline, I want to talk to you about something else
yeah,
regarding your emotional intelligence.
yeah.
So I have an idea on some stuff,
Okay.
but we'll talk about that
Absolutely.
offline. So what are the benefits? What do you think the benefits are for Black women over 50 having experienced when they let go of toxic relationships, environments, or habits? So, what are some of those benefits? What have you seen in your life that are the benefits of
Joy,
letting go of that? Joy,
joy, joy, peace.
my magic word, peace.
Yes, like I could rub my feet together, like and my hands, like it's all good.
Yeah.
And when I reflect back over my life, I was like, oh my gosh, I spent so much time holding on to unnecessary things. But when you really let go,
Yeah.
that is an amazing feeling. The benefits is you feel freer, you feel lighter,
Yeah.
and I think you're freeing up space in your mind to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I write poetry, I write songs,
Mm.
I can write plays, I sing. It's like when I was in that marriage, all of that, I couldn't write a poem to save my life. I couldn't write a song, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like when you become free, everything just kind of flows. It's
Yeah.
like water, it just flows.
Sounds
I,
like you found a renewed energy in you.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes,
And
yes.
that, I mean, and once that toxic toxicity was out of your environment, did you, I know for me, sometimes when I get stressed, I feel it in my stomach. That's where my stress hits me. Did you feel that release in your body when you were
Yes.
finally able to let go of all that?
Mine is in my shoulders. It was
Mm-hmm.
always in my shoulders. So, um, all the way up to the back of my neck. So,
Mm.
and also
In the
clenching. I didn't
jaws.
realize I was clenching my jaws until the dentist told me.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was aware of it. I was like, oh my gosh, how long have I been doing this? So that's where I would get mine at. But once that release came, like, just it's gone.
Yeah.
It's
And
amazing.
like you said, you started writing poetry. So you're reconnecting with that passion and your interests,
Yes,
and public speaking. You said you like public speaking.
I
So
love it. I love it.
yeah, like I said, you can teach me some stuff. I don't mind it, but I mean,
Yeah, you're
doing
doing well.
doing this podcast has taught me a little bit about coming out of my shell and trying something new. About it 2 years, 3 years ago, I would have like podcast. What do I want to be on a podcast for? I don't want to be in front of the camera. No, I'm good. So, and my husband is a musician, so he don't mind being in front of a camera on stage. So, but
Yes,
no, that's important when we let go of that toxicity, whether it's another human being, whether it's a job, whether it's,
wow,
and wherever the environment is. When we let go of that, we're able to reconnect and have that renewed energy. And of course, that's going to improve our health. It's going to improve our mental well-being.
absolutely,
And that's what we have to really work towards. And it's not easy. It's not easy at all. But like we said in the beginning, something about 50, and that's why I wanted to start this podcast, because something about 50 for most of us, not all of us, but it clicks and we're like, hey, there's gonna be some changes around here, y'all.
immediately.
There's gonna be some changes. So I have two more questions for you, my love. So, what role to you does self-love, self-advocacy play in helping Black women prioritize their health and peace?
I think, especially with self advocacy, I'm learning that, just going with the process I'm going through with healing my body.
Mhm.
That's very important for us. And I feel like the more we do that as Black women, it's freeing. First of all, it's liberating. For lack of better terms, liberating. It's important. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that plays a big role in every area on the job, being
Yeah.
able to advocate for yourself, even in your family. Just
Like you said, healthcare, your
yes,
healthcare.
yes, yes. And you mentioned keyword for me because I'm still working through that boundaries, self advocacy, even in boundaries, setting up. It used to be like this, but now it's like this. It just
Right.
is what it is.
Right.
is important, and it plays a big role in our health.
Yeah.
Just keeping part of self-care,
Yeah.
advocating for yourself, putting yourself
Advocate.
first, self-care.
That's right. And I lied. I have more questions. I lied. I lied. I'm enjoying this conversation with you.
I appreciate
Sisterhood.
that. Yes, absolutely.
How does sisterhood, I mean, we community, sisterhood. How
So
has
important.
that helped you get through everything you're
Oh
going
my
through?
gosh, yes. I'm so grateful for that. You hear, I don't hear it often, but you hear some women say, "Oh, I don't have a sister, I don't trust women." I am so glad that I have a circle of
Mhm.
sisters that I can go to. And they're all from different walks of life. One's a psychologist. She's always practicing on me. One's an entrepreneur, one's a singer, it's just
Nice.
different supervisor, program
Hmm.
manager. There are just so many women I can pull from. And I like the fact that if I'm out of pocket, they will they will tell me my slip is showing. Remember that I was saying, tell me
Yes, that
my
is
slip
showing.
is
Yeah.
showing. And I let them. I
Yeah.
allow that. I can be myself, and I can go to them accountability partners and say
That's
when I
important.
was dating, like, oh, I said this, and now you know you was wrong. You need to apologize. Like, okay, sounding board. Or when I just wanted to vent, like, I don't want no advice right now. I'm just mad and I want to get this out. And I remember they'd be like, I'll give you a day to grieve this and cry over this. Tomorrow, get yourself together. Okay.
Okay. Oh my, okay.
Okay. Work. That worked. I didn't want to, but it worked.
I know. I mean, sisterhood and community is so important.
It
It's
is.
really so important because you're right. Sometimes we do need that person to check us or even though I have my husband, sometimes I just want to hear advice from a woman. I want to hear a woman's perspective because she knows what I'm going through.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you don't want advice. Sometimes you let me just vent.
That's it.
And sometimes that's hard for men to just sit and listen. They always want to give advice. It's like, I don't need your advice right now. I just want to just talk and vent and then move on.
That's it.
So that's um, a very good piece of advice on getting that sisterhood, getting those accountability, and and you can't expect one woman to be like your everything.
Right.
I need three or four. You might need that one who just says, "Look, girl, you out of pocket right now,"
That's
or
it.
let's go work out. Let's go. You might need your sister that's gonna say, "Let's go for a hike." You need to
Right.
get out the house, get off your butt. Let's go for a hike.
Right.
So yeah, that's and they need to be like-minded. They
Yes.
need to. They don't necessarily have to be on the same journey, but they have to understand that this is my journey right now and I'd love for you to be on it with me or at least be there to help me through this journey, whatever that journey is.
Right. I
So,
love
yeah, that's definitely important. And what are some small examples? What are some examples of small but meaningful self-care that you do?
it. It could be going for a walk,
Hmm.
just sitting in the sun. I know that's like
Oh,
still, but just sitting in
no,
the sun.
That,
And a
yes.
big one is walking around barefoot
That's
outside.
good. You do that ground. You're grounding. That's what you're
Yes,
doing. You're grounding. You're getting that energy flowing through your body. Yes.
exactly. I used to do that when I was little, so I was like, returning to those things. So,
Yeah.
and sometimes, pedicures. I know that's maintenance, not self care, but for me, and going to get a massage, those things, self care.
That's self-care. I mean, to me, a mani-pedi, because that means you're relaxing.
Exactly.
That even if you just be sitting there, you can get the cheapest manicure or pedicure, but that's what you enjoy doing. That brings you peace and that calms your central nervous system. So hey, I look at that as self-care. I mean, yes, I look at that as self-care, not maintenance.
Absolutely. I'm learning a second language too, so I find joy.
Oh, what are you learning? What are you looking at?
Spanish, Espanol.
Oh, okay. Okay, you go. You
Thank you.
go. I want to learn Portuguese because that's where I want to move to
Oh,
Portugal.
I love
So,
it. When are you
yeah.
moving?
Huh?
When are you moving? When do you think you'll make the transition?
Late 2025, but it might not be like a permanent. It might be like, 2 or 3 months just to get the feel
Yes.
of it. So I push it back a little bit and then I'm like going, something happens out here in good old America. I'm like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, yeah. I like Colombia, so I would go every year. I
Oh,
can't make it this year,
yeah.
but
Oh, I
I
remember you were mentioning Colombia.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, okay.
So,
Well, why do you like Colombia? What is it about Colombia?
when I went the first time I went to this tour of Palenque,
Okay.
and it was where the slaves escaped to. So they don't have
Oh,
police there, they have their own language. So if there's a
okay.
problem there, the elders solve it. And so they're, oh my gosh, it was just if you ever get to go take the Palenque tour,
Okay.
and just seeing us there, us,
Yeah,
we call
yeah.
it negritas, but seeing us there, it was just nice. Like, oh, a lady
Okay.
brought us into her home, and cooked food outside on the stove. I had did a whole write up about it. It was just, I did
Hmm.
their cultural dance, and I kid you not, because it uses a lot of drums and dancing. I looked around, I said, is anybody else getting teary eyed? It's like you could feel something. And so
Mm,
after the tour, I asked somebody, I was like, did y'all feel something? It was like, yes. It
yeah.
was an amazing experience.
Mm.
So I think that was the draw. Everyone was friendly. I don't care where I
Yeah.
went. And miraculously, I knew how to speak Spanish over there. When I come back here, I don't. I don't know why I don't, but when I'm there, it just flows.
It just closed. Well,
Yeah.
that's amazing. You're not going to go this year?
No, we're gonna do Bali.
Oh,
My
okay.
friend is a um what do you call it?
Travel agent.
Yes, travel agent, but she wasn't able to get this trip going. So I was like, okay, we just try something different. No, this
Yeah.
Colombia, I'll circle back around
Yeah. And so when are you going to Bali?
in September.
Oh, that'll be nice.
Yeah,
How
so that'll be my
long?
first time there.
How long? How many days?
I think it's just 5 days,
Oh, okay. Okay.
5 or 6.
Okay.
So I'm
All
looking
right.
forward to
That'll
that.
be fun. Yeah, take plenty of pictures. I want to see
I
them.
will, I will. I sure will.
So now this is my final question.
Okay, no worries.
What does being unapologetically 50 plus mean to you?
For me, it means not worrying about what anybody else thinks, because that was a big thing for me all throughout childhood. So that just means being my authentic self. I am goofy. I am a vibe. I love lighting up a room. I love
Yeah.
being an extrovert. I love being an introvert. I love all of that. There's so many sides to me, and just being okay with that,
Yes.
that was big. Like, this is me. Sometimes I'm gonna come in grinning and goofy. Other times I could be serious, but being okay with that I have all these sides that make me me.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Well, that's amazing.
Thank you.
So this is the end, and I want to thank you. Thank you for being also patient and rescheduling with me. I truly appreciate that.
I
But
enjoyed
yeah, yeah. Well, so we'll definitely have to talk more. Like I said, on
absolutely.
this emotional challenges, I got some things I'm cooking up in my head.
Okay. Okay. I
But
definitely want to stay connected.
oh
I
yeah,
really
we're too
enjoyed.
close not to. We're too close not to stay
Yes.
connected. Definitely. So, thank you again. I appreciate you, Nakia, and we will definitely stay in touch. And for everybody else out there, thank you so much for joining me. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. When you do that, you let the algorithms know that you find this content interesting and you want to see more. So please remember to do that. All right, everybody, thank you again so much, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.